Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hash Rate. My guest today is Leo Lucian of SportsTensor, Subnet 41. Hello, Leo. How you doing?
How you doing? Long time listener, first time caller. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming on. So my pleasure. So your subnet is focused on predicting the outcome of sporting events, right? So in my mind, that's like, Biff's Sports Almanac from Back to the Future too, right?
Correct.
Friday, we didn't build the time machine for personal gain.
But, we need to go back.
So, which I know you actually riff on that with one of your upcoming products. So in your own words, why don't you tell us what you're doing with SportsTensor?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again for having me. Love to be able to speak on your platform. And so SportsTensor is Subnet 41 on BitTensor. And as you said, we incentivize our miners to make predictions on sports outcomes. These sports and leagues are the ones that we decide and we offer. So NBA, NFL, MLB, EPL, and MLS at this current stage. So we take their predictions and then we build our own kind of meta model on top of that. We aggregate that information and then we go and we trade on that information using our own bankroll. And we trade on a prediction market such as Polymarket. I'm sure you know Polymarket. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, it's a prediction market. It's essentially a speculative market where you can bet on the outcome of anything that exists on Polymarket as a market. So, for example, sports is a big thing. You can bet on sports, obviously the result of a match, but you can also bet on politics, like will Trump remove the 100% tariffs by next week? So there's markets that kind of span across all different kind of categories, and so we have been focusing on sports right now, that's kind of like the nutshell.
In a nutshell. Okay, let's dive into some specifics on that, because there's some of this I understand what you're doing, and some of it I'm a little bit fuzzy on. So my understanding is that you're basically a wrapper on top of a Polymarket, and your pitch to miners who are normally people who just bet on Polymarket. You're like, hey, don't just bet directly on Polymarket. Come over here to our wrapper and bet here. And, the trade-off is this. We will charge you 1% fee on whatever your bet is. If you lose, it doesn't matter, right? Because you would have lost 100% anyway on Polymarket, right? So it's correct. There's no difference if you lose. However, if you win, we're going to take 1% away. But we're going to replace that with Subnet tokens. You're going to get rewarded with Subnet 41 tokens, which maybe that's a lot larger than the 1% that you gave up, right? Because you're right. Yeah. So that's basically the deal. So you're like, you can win more if you bet with us instead of Polymarket directly. Now,
correct. Yeah.
Okay. So now how do I?
One caveat to that is that even if you win, you still need to be within our scoring mechanism, right? So you could win once, great, but you need to consistently win. And that was a scoring mechanism that we had from the previous incentive mechanism before the prediction market. Now moving into prediction market, it's the same thing. You still need to show a history of winning to be able to be eligible to earn the rewards. Oh. So we really try to avoid rewarding, spurious kind of trading activity, insider activity, or just random guessing and variance in winning bets. You need to show that you have edge. You need to show that you have information that is profitable. And that's when we start rewarding you.
Got it. So if I'm just like a one-time winner, I get nothing.
Correct.
But if I'm consistently if I'm the Nostradamus of sports, then I start earning more and more and more and more, right?
Correct.
As my sort of weight in the system increases. Is that basically it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is exactly it. And the reason why we do it is obviously the original incentive mechanism is that we're incentivizing you to build AI machine learning models as well, right? So our thesis is that the average person could be a good sports bettor, but you can't really beat AI. You can't really beat machine learning in terms of recognizing patterns and finding, mispriced odds, for example. So to be able to rely on machine intelligence, that's where you can kind of maintain your edge. And that's the whole consistency part You can keep betting as long as you have a performing model that's going to give you consistently good intelligence to trade on and you win, then you will get rewarded. And so that's kind of almost like our way of inferring that there is machine learning intelligence behind this.
Got it. So so unless you are Nostradamus, right? Like, so if you have a magical ability as a human, great, then you still win. But your assumption is, and probably the reality is that you have to build an AI model that analyzes the sports bet, and eventually that AI model becomes very good at outperforming humans and predicting the correct outcome of an event. So okay, so. One more question about sort of like the mechanics of this. So
sure, go for it.
Since this is like a wrapper on top of Polymarket, with Polymarket, I know how to bet. Like I go, I guess it's on Polygon, right? I assume, because it's called Polymarket.
Yeah.
And so I have to have a MetaMask wallet on Polygon, and then and I have to not be in the United States, right? Or I guess that's changing now. And then I go and bet on Polymarket, and I either win or lose. And if I win, then the winnings come into my MetaMask wallet. What is it like interacting with your system? Can I use MetaMask? How does a Tau wallet fit in there, if it does?
Yep.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Great question. So instead of a wrapper, we call it a layer, right, on top of Polymarket, because you're going through us and then the trades kind of get sent to Polymarket.
Yep.
So what we do is currently right now, in terms of how Polymarket is set up, is we still need you, if you sign up for Almanac, which is our platform, you still need to create a Polymarket account and link the two accounts, right? Okay. So you create the Polymarket account, you create an Almanac account, connect the two. So therefore we know that this is your account.
So sorry, the Almanac account, now that's a native BitTensor Tau wallet based account. Is that correct?
It's not, because we have the BitTensor extension wallet connector as well. So there's almost like three that you need to kind of make sure you have, which is an Almanac account. So I'll walk you through it, right?
Yeah, please.
I go in, I sign up. I want to use Almanac. I sign up, I create an account. So therefore I have a Leo account. And then you have two essential prompts. One is to connect your Polymarket account, which you would just hit connect and it'll automatically draw your APIs and it'll connect the account if you log into Polymarket. And then the second prompt is connect your BitTensor wallet. And so when you hit that, the BitTensor browser pops up and you sign the transaction and say, this is my account attached to this BitTensor wallet. And therefore, from that Almanac account, we can connect the BitTensor wallet to the Polygon wallet or Polymarket wallet, and then to the Almanac account.
And the Almanac, so the BitTensor wallet, the reason why you need to do that is so you can get your winnings, right? Because you want somewhere for your Subnet 41 tokens to go
to land,
as you earn
exactly.
them, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Correct.
So make sure that's clear.
It's for both. Yeah, it's for both verification, but also for you to collect your emissions.
Yeah. Okay. And so now, do I have to? I know with Bitcast, which is another subnet, which I'm not going to go into in brief, but I use it as a miner, right? Because it's a video content production subnet. They had to set up a miner for me. Right, because setting up a miner is kind of hard, right? Like you have to be like an IT guy, basically. And Bitcast came to me and they said, "Well, we'll set one up for you, and eventually we're going to have sort of a service where this is just automated, where you just sign up and under the hood, we'll generate a miner for you." Do you have something like that, or something like that coming for you guys?
Yes, we're working on something exactly like that. We're going to have two separate reward pools, one for the miners and one for just users of Almanac. So the whole point for us is to obviously promote Almanac as a prediction market layer on top of Polymarket. Use it, you can earn rewards. We don't really talk much about mining and BitTensor. It's branded, it's there, but to remove friction, we want to attract the average user with terminology that they understand. So we have the user pool, which they just come onto Almanac, they create an account. And what happens is we have a UID on the BitTensor side that's reserved to receive kind of like X amount of the emissions that are reserved for the user pool. And so the user comes in, they can trade. There's a user leaderboard, which it could be top 100. We haven't figured that part out, but it could be top 50. It could be top 200. But either way, if you're kind of ranking in this leaderboard, you can actually earn our emissions without becoming a miner. right? You would just be trading within this leaderboard without becoming a miner. Then there's the miner side, which you would have to register as a miner.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused on something. So if I'm not a miner, I'm earning Subnet 41 tokens, or am I earning something else? Like how do
you'll be earning, so because of the 1% fee, right, which is the USDC, right, because that's what the token used to trade, we can actually redistribute that to the non-miners as rewards. And then the UID that earns, yes, correct. If you're not a miner, you're earning USDC, and then the alpha within that UID that's supposed to be dispersed there will all get burnt, right? Because it's already been accounted for with the USDC being distributed to the non-miner users. Now, the benefit of being a miner is you earn Subnet 41 alpha, right? And you earn hopefully an appreciating asset there. So you would want to become a miner, and the pool of emissions to the miners is higher than the ones of the users. So the incentives are going to be much higher to be a miner, but we're also allowing anyone to come and get used to the interface and earn some tokens, earn some USDC as rewards, and just trade as well on Almanac. Hopefully, they go, "Hey, I'm doing really well. I'm going to become a miner now," and they'll move over.
Yeah, I get it. So the thought process is: look, you betting person, you AI betting expert person out there, you might not give a shit about this BitTensor stuff, and that's fine.
Correct.
You can still come over here, have some fun. Earn USDC instead of Subnet 41 tokens. Like, we don't care, just fucking USDC. Here you go. And and a lot of people, and that sort of is the gateway drug that gets people into your universe, right? And then at a certain point, they figure out what's going on, and they're like, wait a minute, there's these Subnet tokens. There's like an ownership layer. You mean I can kind of like own a chunk of this Subnet that I really like and that seems to be doing really well? And then they can like upgrade if they want to and start earning Subnet 41 tokens instead of USDC, which is very similar to what Ridges did, right? So because Ridges has a lot of like AI people who don't like crypto, right? Like they basically said, look, we'll just pay you, we'll just pay you in dollars. Like we won't, but if you want Subnet tokens as payment, we'll do that. Here's how you do that. But if you don't care, we'll just give you dollars. And that way they get the best AI minds in the world, even the ones that don't like crypto at all, to participate in their network. Yeah, so you're doing the same thing. I love that.
That is 100% the thought process, is that if you can just invite and you will welcome and bring on as much people as possible, you'll get what Polymarket's doing, which is insane amounts of information that comes through their markets, right? And the thing about Polymarket and prediction markets is the phenomenon of wisdom of the crowd. So as you get all these people, all the information from anyone, if you remove as much friction as possible, or if you incentivize them enough to give their information, they'll come through. You'll get, essentially an accurate, result or a prediction of what's going to happen if you have enough of that input. So we need to open this up to as many people as possible to get that information. And the incentivization and also the miner track is where we clean up the signal, right? We go, here's way more incentive, but it's way stricter to be earning this incentive. And therefore, the information that we get, the plus EV information, the profitable information, is going to be much cleaner and it's going to be sharper. And we get access to all of that because they're trading on our platform.
Okay. So you recently did a deal with Polymarket, and I did hear the story of how that came about, where you were doing so much volume on Polymarket, like they reached out to you and they're like, "Hey, so who are you guys? Are you a market maker?" Right?
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit about that story, because that's a pretty interesting story.
Yeah. So with the last incentive mechanism, we were getting minor outputs, right? And we were getting our submissions. We were building the meta model on top, and we were trading on that information. And of course, we traded on Polymarket, right? And we ended up doing roughly, I think, 500,000 in volume. And that's when
500,000, what, a day, a month? What?
No, in total, over about 3 months. Yeah. It was 500,000 a day. I think we're aiming for that, but not quite there yet.
Okay. So 500,000 total.
Yeah, so I've been over about 3 months, and at that point, Polymarket reached out and was like, "Hey, how can we help you with your market making?" And I posted all this on our X, and I was like, "Hey, like we're not actually market makers, but we are, this." And I was like, "Let's get on a call." So like, yeah, sweet, let's have a chat. I pretty much like towel-pilled them, and I was like, we're a BitTensor subnet. This is what we're doing, and this whole incentivization route, and we're trying to like they're like, okay, this sounds really interesting. Like, how do we get involved? Like, how do we let's do something. And then they're really chill. I really love it. They're like not a massive corporation. So like, I was talking to their, head of communications, their head of markets, and very like kind of flat structure there, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're like, how do we get involved? And I was like, all right, we've been working on this incentive mechanism for over a year now. And we have found that there are pros and cons to what's happened. And the con being like, we're not expecting our miners to trade. We're only expecting them to give us the predictions, which means there is no skin in the game, right? They could be predicting really well, but if they don't predict well, there's no consequence apart from them not earning any of our alpha tokens. But there is no slashing, there is no consequence. So I thought, okay, prediction markets, if we kind of use the prediction market infrastructure and say that, okay, now we trade on a prediction market. So you have skin in the game now. What it does is, it cleans up the signal and makes it more high quality because people are, they're not taking as much risk. There is capital risk.
You have to bet. Yeah.
You have to bet and you have to win. And if you don't win, you lose money. Yeah. So you're much more cautious, and you're going to spend a lot more time on that model trying to make sure it's correct. So we thought it was actually a really good synergy because using prediction market infrastructure helped us solve a lot of our issues. And one of them being something you mentioned before was it's too complex to join BitTensor, right? To become a miner, it's so hard, which is why we build this prediction market. We have a user pool. Just come, have some fun, try it out. And if you like it, dive deeper, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of synergies involved. Another thing is like volatility, like we saw when we were trading, a lot of volatility in sports games. The odds can change drastically. A player gets hurt, etc. Things can, go south really quickly on your bet. And with Polymarket or prediction markets, you can actually sell your contract, right? You can sell your bet. So you can exit out of the bet at the odds at the time. So it really allows for kind of new trading strategies for our miners. Instead of taking the bet and riding it all the way to the end of the game, you can take the bet, you can hit a point where you go, I think, the profit here is good enough. I don't need to see the end of this. I'm going to, apply some risk management here and sell the contract, lock in that profit, lock in that ROI, and live to fight another day. So there are a lot of, benefits to trading on a prediction market, which we saw fit really well with our incentive mechanism, which is how we came to kind of working together on this and going, okay, let's do something together. And yeah, the rest is history.
So let me ask you something else. So I know that one of the reasons, what I read on X, I think it was one of your X posts, was that one of the reasons why Polymarket was so excited about partnering with you is that even though they've been insanely successful in multiple dimensions, mostly political, right?
Yeah.
The sports betting side, they've been behind some of their competitors, technically.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. So they're looking to sort of increase that sector of their business, that market segment.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
So there's that, and that makes sense. I understand that. One of the other things, I think this is a quote from you guys. As mentioned, Polymarket doesn't take fees. So what they do care about is the truth, AKA the winning volume in their markets, which is exactly the thing that SportsTensor incentivizes. Now, I'm confused about exactly what that means, because I think you're saying that what Polymarket wants is good predictions of the future outcome. I believe so that they can set odds correctly. Is that why they value that signal?
Yeah. So So that is actually that's two separate like market categories, right? So what applies to sports is not necessarily what applies to, say, politics or culture. So with sports, yes, the more accurate winning volume that comes through, the more you get closer to the true odds of what's going to happen in a sports game. Whereas in a kind of like political market, the more of that winning volume comes in, you get closer to the truth, right? Of what's going to actually happen. And that's something that Polymarket, they value this so much because they want to be the place where people go to find the truth, right? That's what's going to happen. How long is the government going to be shut down?
I think what you mean is where they go to find out the future in advance. When you say the truth, right? Because that was confusing me because I'm like, well, they know the truth. They know after the game, they know who won, right? Like that's not, there's no magic there. So what you really want is they want to be the Oracle at Delphi, where it's like, if you want to know what's going to happen in the future, go to Polymarket. Pretty much most of the time, it knows before everybody else. That's
correct. Now, if like for example, how long is the government going to be shut down for? There's a lot of questions and a lot of information through the media, but you go to Polymarket and it gives you a very clear, between these dates is this percent, right?
Right.
And so people can use that information and go, okay, how do I plan for this? If I have a small business, how's it going to affect me? So this is the kind of the interesting side of prediction markets as well, is how can you use this information and what happens when you have this information? So that's something that we're obviously really big on, is the information side of things. Is that, yes, we're opening it up. We're letting anyone bet because the information is so important. It's just like data. It's just like gold. And we're starting off with sports because that's what we know. But if we start moving into crypto predictions, synth, shout out synth, weather predictions, shout out Zeus, Gaia, we can move into these kind of prediction markets where our subnets on BitTensor have state of the art or really high performing models that they can execute and earn our tokens, but also feed their data and information into the system to make Polymarket more accurate, and us as well. We would love to aggregate that data as well. So that's information is the key part here.
Yeah. So Polymarket is Polytrades. It's the spice, and it knows. It knows the future, right? Which we've seen. Right? It's
the spice must flow.
Yes, the spice must flow, right? And you go to Polymarket, and it's like a guild navigator, on Spice, and it's full of space. And we've seen it. We've seen it be freakishly accurate in the political arena. It knows better than the pollsters, which is absolutely insane, right? It knows shit. It just does.
Yeah.
So
I want you to kind of think about how and why that happens, right? And after about 2 seconds, I'm going to tell you, right? It's essentially incentivization. Right. Polymarket, prediction markets, I believe, are the original decentralized intelligence network, right? You're getting a network of people, decentralized, that all have different levels of intelligence, right, on a certain topic. And they're incentivized to provide their information to this network, right? Which is the profit. You can bet on your information and you can make money on that. So that's the interesting thing, is we believe that someone who has information will be driven to share that information if there is some financial kind of return on that. And we're just boosting that. We're increasing that incentives and going, hey, keep giving us that information and keep doing that research, keep looking for that information. And I'll give you a really interesting example. Is I'm sure you've seen the Nobel Peace Prize, right? That's been kind of going around Polymarket, the market on who's going to win the Nobel Peace Prize. A couple hours beforehand, the odds from Machado spiked up from 0 point something to 70%, right? I was following this up very, very closely, and a lot of news articles and media outlets are saying it's inside information, right? Or someone leaked the info, they went on Polymarket and they put a whole bunch of money on there. What, we've found within the prediction market space, what we've kind of deduced is that someone is just very, very savvy, right? And they are so incentivized by the money that they could win from finding this out. One theory is essentially they built a scraper on the Nobel Peace Prize website to scrape the sitemap to see any new edition pages that might indicate that the winner of they're about to announce the winner, right? Not published yet, but it's on the sitemap. And so this is an example of what incentivization can do to motivate someone to find information or find the truth, build models, algorithms to correctly predict something. And this is Yeah. Yeah. So
So it's not, so the theory is it wasn't inside information. It wasn't like
correct.
somebody at the Nobel Prize that that pulling a Nancy Pelosi and just like trading on that insider information. Not that. Right.
Exactly.
It was instead somebody got clever and said, oh, if they're gonna announce people, they're probably going to be tweaking the website and preparing it for the announcement.
Yes.
Buried in that metadata will be clues as to who that person's going to be. And they just were more clever than everyone and knew how things worked in websites and knew what to look for. So
exactly. And that's the beauty of like decentralized networks, right? Like that person is not like, I wouldn't be able to think about that, but that person did, and they were able to, supply their information into the market. And so we were able, I mean, it's questionable whether like if there's any utility to knowing the Nobel Peace Prize like a few hours earlier, but if you apply this to markets where information like this is actually really important, that determines what government decisions are made, or like, certain things that are going to influence people's lives, then you can see how it's so powerful to incentivize the information that you can get through prediction markets.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I want to go back to something you said earlier. So you were one part of this deal that you have with Polymarket is that you get to create new markets on Polymarket. Is that correct? Okay, I thought I read that somewhere. And so so to explain this, normally like you and I, or you can now, but I can't. Regular humans, mere mortals, cannot wake up one morning and say, "Oh, I wish there was this market on Polymarket. I'm going to go create it." There is no long tail user-generated Polymarket market. They make the markets. They decide what people are betting on. And probably this is so people don't come up with effed up things to bet on, right? Like bets or things like that, right?
Yes.
So I understand why they're doing it. It makes total sense. But so they do. But in certain cases, they do authorize third parties to create new markets within their, because they trust you and they think that you're a good source of new markets. So you're going to get the ability to create new markets. What are you going to do with that? I think you talked a little bit about maybe doing weather forecasting. Basically taking other BitTensor subnets and using Polymarket to I guess create miners for like Zeus and things like weather prediction and things like that. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the main the reason why I thought this was a great idea was that it's a proving ground for subnets, right? Because what we did was when we got our subnet intelligence, we proved that our subnet was generating intelligence by actually trading on that intelligence, right? And profiting. By profiting, you can already deduce that the intelligence is worth something. So we wanted to give that kind of platform to the rest of the prediction markets, prediction subnets, on BitTensor. Now, Synth is already doing that. These guys are amazing. They're already kind of trading a little bit on Polymarket to test their models out. We're going to have a discussion with them. But, Zeus, Gaia, other prediction subnets, they don't particularly have a platform to do that. And so we want to kind of help them out, and we can say, hey, I mean, it's for the benefit of BitTensor if more subnets are able to show the intelligence that they generate and how they are state of the art, how they're beating existing companies out there right now. So that's the main kind of reason why we decided to do that. Secondly, we can create, Zeus can be a miner on our subnet, Synth can be a miner on our subnet. They can earn our tokens and become investors in our subnet as well.
Okay, so how would this work? So basically Zeus itself would be a miner on your a SportsTensor miner. It wouldn't be like Zeus miners are also SportsTensor miners, right?
No,
that's not.
It would be Zeus that would have to act on the intelligence that they get from their miners.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So like, I would get on a call with Wouter and I'd be like, hey, spin up a miner on Subnet 41, and then attach your Zeus API to that miner, and then start predicting on the markets that we can open for you in terms of climate predictions, and start trading. And hey, let's here, I'll give you like some cash as well. Like start trading with that, test it out, and just show the world like, look what's happening. Like Zeus is predicting on Almanac, making a ton of money, and they're accurate.
Yeah. So basically, it's ultimately it's another revenue stream for Zeus or Guy. That's where it goes.
Correct.
And it could be pretty significant depending on how popular the weather betting market becomes. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, right. And we can do this with pretty much any category. We're exploring different categories as well. Like sports, obviously a big thing. Esports is like you can say like part of sports, but also a separate category. We're working with data providers who are interested in getting into prediction markets with their esports data. So we can go down a lot of routes because of how broad prediction markets are, what kind of topics and categories they cover. So exciting stuff.
Very, very interesting. So, okay, so let's now talk about sort of your subnet and how it becomes a big business, right? So, I love all of this. This is all like really interesting and really great. But how does this drive value to your subnet token? Like how do you see that happening? I mean, Hippias has been on this. They have a very complex new model, which I really like. I don't know if it's going to work yet or not. It's not proven. But it's a really great hypothesis, right? So I'm wondering, what is your hypothesis? Because right now, if I earn Subnet 41 tokens, its purpose in life is for me to sell them, which, right, like as far as I know, right? But is there a
not yet. Yeah.
So tell me what you're thinking about that.
Yeah. So we have built an incentive mechanism where essentially we only pay out the fees that we earn through Almanac as miner rewards, right? So therefore, miners' emissions are essentially offset, right? We have dials that we can tweak. We can actually pay them less. We can pay them more. It's just whatever makes sense for us to incentivize, bring miners on board, but also pay just the right amount for the information, right? We don't need to overpay. That's something that we've experienced ourselves. I'm sure a lot of subnets have experienced is like, yes, our emissions have popped up, but the amount of effort that the miner has put in doesn't quite match that. So we need to be able to control that. And that's what we've built into our incentive mechanism. So if miner emissions are offset, then, the fees that come through, depending on the volume, right? We're only taking 1%, 1 cent for every dollar. But if we have, 100 million in volume, we're making a lot of money. We're making a lot of fees that we can push back into the alpha token. And if the emissions don't meet the fees, then there is a surplus of fees that we obviously just push back into buying the alpha tokens off the market. And so the good thing is that we only have really one metric, which is how much volume can we drive to Almanac, because that dictates everything else, right? The more volume we have, the more fees that we can generate, which means the more we can pay our miners. And if we pay our miners the perfect amount, if there's an excess, then it's just going into the alpha and it's just going to keep going. And so that thought process should cross the minds of all our miners, where if you don't sell, then really there's going to be just fees that keep adding on to the alpha token, and it's just going to keep, hopefully keep going up. I'm not going to, not financial advice.
Yeah, of course.
But that is kind of like the flywheel that we've created within Almanac, right? And the interesting thing is it's a good thing you asked this, because we haven't really spoken about this before, is that Almanac is collecting all this positive EV information, right? Data that is winning data. What do we do with that, right? We're actually the gatekeepers of it. We can actually do something with it. So we're exploring right now of starting a hedge fund where we take the data, we build our own models around that, we aggregate that, we apply our proprietary models, and we trade on that data. And then the profits of that hedge fund also go into the alpha.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some new revenue streams hopefully coming up here. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I think that's pretty good. So basically the answer is that, look, we're going to generate revenue. That revenue is going to be used to purchase alpha tokens off the market. And eventually, so, not financial advice, but the idea is that, hopefully you get to lots and lots and lots of revenue. And that means lots of buy pressure, and which should theoretically make the token price go up. And now you guys have to pay yourselves too. So I assume like you're taking some for yourselves so you can sort of pay salaries. And how many, how big are you guys, and how many people do you have, and how long have you been at this roughly?
Yeah, so there's now 5 of us. I'm very excited to say that we have just hired a 5th kind of senior, very, very senior developer who we've been trying very hard to get to join us. We have been 4 prior to him since we launched in July last year. We've been very hesitant with hiring just because we wanted to be very savvy with our finances. And we've had a few hiccups with hiring devs, which, didn't meet our standards. So we've just been 4 of us for pretty much the whole year building all of this. And then now we're 5. So very small team, but we're cracked and we get stuff done.
Well, congratulations on that. I know how that is to sort of get the band jamming correctly. And sometimes the drummer is just the wrong drummer for the band. Might be a great drummer in another band, but not this band. So I totally get that whole thing. Okay. I did see another post, by the way, and I'm not sure if this, I might have misread this, but I thought I saw a post where you guys were talking about computer vision. Are you guys? Yes. Okay, so that was you guys, because I was sort of surprised by that, because I was like, well, it sounded like another sports themed subnet, which I will not name because I try not to name competitors on the same show. Yeah. But there is another sports based subnet which is very heavily into computer vision. Are you guys getting into that also, and why, and in what way?
No, so we're building computer vision because of our own needs, right? We have our own proprietary AI, but also our mission has always been like, you want to feed your miners the best data or as much information for them to perform well, right? There's no benefit if they're struggling, right? You're paying them, you want them to perform well. So why not also give them the tools and give them the information and data for them to perform well? So, we just went ahead. We go, look, we know what it takes to get, additional data. You can source data from data providers anywhere, but computer vision is something that, hasn't really, it's being explored right now in the sports industry, but it hasn't really gotten to the point where a company is like, okay, I'm gonna, soak all that up and I'm going to sell that. And so there's also a lot of amazing open source models. There's also a lot of amazing builders who are also developing, computer vision technology that we're leveraging right now. We're making kind of connections. We're talking to people. Let's build together, because we want to just get this information and we just want to give it to our miners and be like, hey, just please perform better. Here's some more data.
So wait, so the information. So by giving them visual or AI or I guess AI annotated information. So the idea is, hi miners that are trying to predict sporting events. Here's I've had AIs crunching all the players that are on this team, and it's just sort of watched every game where they've played, something like this. I know it's not exactly this, but all the players that are on Team A. We've had our computers watch all the players over history, and we can better predict how they will perform together as a unit based on this computer vision data. Is that basically more or less sort of it?
Yeah, more or less. It's more like, we have frame by frame annotated data of players' positions, right? Player position, like ball position, referee position. And so we're going to give you guys all this data, and you guys can build features within your models that interpret this data however you want, right? Okay. And so a miner might say, okay, I'm going to look more at defensive strategies and how they influence the outcome. So then player positioning or ball positioning can help them kind of formulate, better features and better theses on how these defense strategies are going to affect their ultimate win probabilities. And so there are, a plethora of different strategies they can come up with just the data alone, with just the annotated data alone. We would rather give them the data and you guys kind of create your own strategies, rather than like, here's what we think, now try to fit this into like what you've built. Because we've also learned that they're not all just using the same type of model, and they're all miners are trying different things. So there's not like one size fits all, like here's a strategy, here's a feature. It's better to just say, here's like a whole ton of data that you can't access or you don't have access to, which we think is going to enrich your data set and give you better win probabilities, and you go ahead and play with it.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So so let's talk more generally about BitTensor in general now.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, actually, before we get into that, is there anything I should have asked about your product or your subnet that I haven't asked yet, or do we basically cover it, do you think? Okay.
No, we're covered. You did really well.
So I want to make sure you weren't sitting there going, "My God, when's he going to get to this thing?" Right. So sometimes that does happen. So I just want to make sure
you covered everything. Don't worry.
All right, we got it. All right, so let's move on to BitTensor in general now. So lots of consternation surrounding the halvening. Point one. Do you have an opinion on, and the issues are basically, should we just allow the halvening to continue as is? Should we modify the halvening mechanics so that, we're halvening the amount of alpha and tau that get injected into the liquidity pools? Some people think we should, at the same time and on the same schedule, having all the alpha emissions that are going to miners, validators, and subnet owners, just to make everything sort of more symmetrical. As it stands right now, we will not have those things at the same time, right? Only the pools will start shrinking in terms of their ability to handle vast amounts of trading, right? So, do you have an opinion on whether this is a good idea? Should we do something? Should we do nothing? What do you think will happen?
Yeah, so I think the way as it stands, I think certain subnets are going to be affected more than others, just to the fact that as the liquidity grows much slower in a pool, the same amount of alpha is getting emitted, right? So therefore, the dumping pressure or the sell pressure is going to be,
correct. It'll be higher,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think. Once again, I think that affects certain subnets more so than others, where the miners are required to sell just to be able to continue mining, right? The cost of mining is much higher. On certain subnets, the cost of mining is very low. So they can afford not to sell and not to impact the liquidity pool as much. I think that I personally, our subnet doesn't require heavy GPU usage so that you don't have to sell a lot of the miners, a lot of the alpha emissions. But I think it's also wise for subnets to kind of build into their incentive mechanism, at least of the value of holding their alpha token, more so than like it's just a monetary reward for your work.
Yeah,
and just like how we've seen detail force subnets to shift their attention to how do I drive revenue back to our alpha tokens, and now everyone's looking at revenue or creating different systems to offset this kind of system. I think that with the halvening, we're going to see that also force subnets to adjust and change to what's going to happen, which is you're going to have to build more value, or at least give miners a better reason to hold your alpha. And that might cause some subnets to restructure their whole incentive mechanism. But the question is is that better for BitTensor as a whole, right?
Yeah.
If subnets are also baking this into their incentive mechanism and the value of their alpha token.
Yeah, so I've obviously spent an awful lot of time thinking about this, right? Because I'm trying to predict what's going to, as like still core guy. The question that's one of the questions that's foremost on my mind is, should we even be investing in subnets at all ahead of the halvening, right? Like if I think there's going to be like a bloodbath at the halvening, then it might be best just to hang back, right? And wait for that bloodbath and buy into that, right? Like, so I've been sort of really analyzing, and talking to a lot of different people about it. I think where I'm at now, I agree with you that there's an awful lot of sell pressure that's going to come for alpha tokens, right? That said, I think that a lot of subnet owners will adjust miner emissions to compensate for that, right? So they'll just fix it themselves, right? They'll just be like, you know what, we're going to have it manually using our subnet powers. So miners will now be getting, and the miners are going to screech about that, obviously, because they're getting half of what they were getting before. But that's what happened in Bitcoin, right? And it will definitely cause the weaker miners to fall out. The weaker subnets will die. I totally agree with you. So evolution will happen. Market forces will be brought to bear on this problem, and I think ultimately it's going to be fine to buy into subnet tokens ahead of the halvening. And it's just a guess. I don't really know, and there's a lot of moving pieces here. That said, as best as I can guess right now, it looks to me like the other dynamic at play here is that we're in this sort of magical time, I think, where the prices of the subnet market caps are artificially extremely low, right? So like this will be a time like going, when you could buy Bitcoin on Mt. Gox for $10, right?
Yeah.
Oh, magical fairyland. I wish I could go back to that time, right?
Yeah.
I think we're in that time right now in BitTensor land, right? Where, Ridge's market cap is 80 million, right? Or 90 million or whatever it is today. Whereas Anthropic's is close to 200 billion, right? So Ridge's should be somewhere closer to that if their product is what it looks like to be, right? We're going to find out when they actually launch on the 30th of October. But that is a monstrous delta between those two things. There shouldn't be that monstrous delta, right? So I think. Just go ahead. You have some thoughts.
Yeah, no. So like just on that point about like Ridges, love the guys, love Shaq, amazing what they've done. I always find it interesting when people compare Ridges is X amount in market cap and Anthropic is X amount in market cap. There is this huge differential. I understand that, but also Anthropic's market cap is not its market cap because just of its product, right? Like it's done a lot in terms of creating its brand, its awareness, getting its users. And that's where a lot of that market cap comes from, right? And so I feel like Ridges should be closer per se, but it's also questionable whether Ridges can actually execute as well as Anthropic in getting the attention to your
that is extremely correct.
Benches.
You are totally correct about that. So I just want to acknowledge that. Please continue.
Yeah. So your smash and sweep benches and you're outperforming Anthropic. But do you have the means and resources to get the same users, get the same amount of usage that they have, right? And like this is like that same kind of idea that you could be the smartest person in the world, but like if you don't have a way to kind of show that or execute that, then no one knows, and therefore you're not the smartest person in the world, right? So I think that's the question that I have with these comparisons to subnets and these. Web 2 or like these large conglomerate companies that are adjacent to the same, vertical or topic. I do believe that, but I also believe that subnets are undervalued at the very least, at least the ones that, I believe are going to be able to make it out of the BitTensor bubble. And just from that alone, I would consider, continually investing in them prior to the halvening, just because you also do a lot of your due diligence and you go, okay, how badly is the halving going to affect this subnet? And you obviously dive into it. What's the cost of mining? What are your operational expenses? How thick is your liquidity pool already? You look into that and you go, okay, now I have a better idea on when, if I should invest or not. And I think that's just part of, investing in subnets. The halvening will make a difference, just like how it does for Bitcoin, but people still buy, right?
Yeah. So Lee, by the way, I think you said some incredibly smart things there. Nobody has crossed the chasm yet from the BitTensor world into the real world where they have a very successful consumer product that's generating a shitload of revenue that they've productized extremely well, that the product is just beautiful and a joy to use, and that they've marketed very well, right?
Yes.
So I think what you said, if when you start off as an engineer, and I started off as an engineer, so I completely get this mindset. You're like, I'm smarter than everyone. Fuck them all. Like if I build something awesome, like people will just see that it's awesome and come to me, right? Yeah. Which is not the way Earth works, right? No. It's not the way Earth works. And as you're an engineer, you are smarter than everyone, but it doesn't fucking matter. And it's very frustrating, and you don't understand what you don't understand. And you look at marketing people as like, oh, those are just party boys and party girls that go to parties. They don't do real work like what I do. I'm like the brains here, right? Like that's what you feel like. And I did feel this way, and I did think this, and I was stupid. I say that very, I've clearly stopped doing that. Nowadays I'm actually much more so on the marketing side of things, and sort of the economic side of things, right? Because that is part of it. You have to have great engineering, and you have to have great product idea. And you have to beat the SWE benchmark or whatever that analogy, whatever's analogous in the world you're in. But you need the beautiful front end. You need the beautiful user interface. You need to think about every single click in that user interface. And, even removing one click can, quadruple your revenue.
100%.
As Amazon found out, right? Things like having the wrong color, like if your color scheme is off, like it may look wrong to certain cultures, like all that stuff matters. And then just marketing it, getting it in front of the right people and getting them to understand what your product is and buy it is a whole nother thing. And sometimes that's 99% of it. Whoever markets the best, even with a shittier product, sometimes wins. Case in point, MS-DOS and in Windows 3.1 versus a lot of other things that were better, right? Like the Amiga was probably a better product, right? So, but Bill Gates just marketed it better, right? Just knew how to get it in front of people. So,
I think to add to that, I mean, you laid that out very beautifully. I think what is important is that there's a balance, right? And that there is the engineering side, there's the marketing side and the brand and the design side, because like you said, for people to be able to, want to use it, you need to remove the friction, you need to make it a joy, you need to make it, fun for them to use or, applicable, relevant to what they need. But, you could market this thing and you can be like, this is the best thing in the world. But if you get users coming through, it still needs to work, and it still needs to work well. So that's why I think there needs to be a nice balance, and that's what you should look for also in a team, right? When you look for investing in subnets, it's like, look at the team, right? Are they just all engineers? Well, then they either need to hire marketing, branding, CEO, like they need to really fill out those roles, and if they don't, then they've got a problem. But then you look at teams where there's a balance between, there's marketing, CEO, et cetera, and then the CTO and devs and dev team. Then you go, there's more of a chance here that they're going to make it, right? Because especially if what they're building is a consumer product. If you're talking about B2B, maybe you can probably get away with like the bells and whistles. But if we're talking consumer products, retail, you need people to understand not just how to market it, but how to market to your demographic of users. And that's what's really important that I feel. And that's my role in SportsTensor. I'm not a developer. I'm not as smart as my team, but, I appreciate them immensely because, I come to them with like, this is what I need from a marketing, branding, and user perspective. And they go, can do, can't do, and we can work together. And now we're meeting in the middle. It's like, we're definitely going to be able to get that feature out, the product out, and in my mind, I'm like, it's going to hit the right target audience. And so you kind of need that balance, right, with the subnet teams and subnets in general.
Okay. All right. So before we go, I have a couple of quick questions from the audience, which I actually collected before this show. Nice. Somebody wants to know when we're going to get UFC fights on your platform. Is that on the schedule anywhere, or is that sort of to be determined?
Yeah, I mean, if it's on Polymarket, it's going to be on Almanac. I'll tell you that.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
How long before we see you venture beyond sports? I guess you sort of answered that, but is there any sort of time horizon?
Very quickly, I believe. We're making a lot of ground on onboarding sports specific traders, but we're also getting a lot of interest from traders who are not just in sports. They're in politics, they're in crypto, they're in culture markets. So we're really kind of working with traders or high volume traders to be like, what do you need to get started? And of course, you probably don't need to move all your trading onto Almanac because it's, dependent on the markets that we offer. But we do want to be accommodating to, traders who aren't just sports, because we also know that there's a lot of information of value when it comes to information coming from these traders and in these specific markets. And if we're going to build this hedge fund of prediction markets, then, it's not just sports. It's anything that prediction markets cover as well.
Yep.
So soon.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Very good. This is a question I don't understand, but you might. Which of Neuro's caps is your favorite?
Neuro, aka Steven, he's our head of AI, and whenever he does streams or interviews, he has a wall of baseball caps behind him.
Oh, okay, right, because this was on the IAM thing. Yeah, that was on revenue search. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I don't even know if he has a Brewers cap, but I'm just going to say Brewers because our CTO is a big fan of Brewers. So
got it.
There's that.
Okay. And final question before we go. Why is at LCNXYZ such a Chad?
I don't know. You're going to have to ask my mom. Yeah, thanks for
I thought that was a great question and a fitting one to end on. You are a Chad. Yeah. I love what you're doing. I
appreciate that.
You've been a fantastic guest, and I really appreciate you taking some time to come and chat with us. Anything you want to plug before we go, like any Twitter handles or anything?
No, I think if you're listening to this, you know where to find us. If you don't, at SportsTensor and at Almanac_market, and myself at LCNXYZ. And at Mark Jeffrey, he's the best. Follow him as well.
Thank you. I appreciate you plugging me as well. All right, everybody. My name is Mark Jeffrey. This has been Hash Rate. We'll see you all next time.